Hundreds of applications pour in. They immediately get dumped into a grueling corporate funnel, pushed through rigorous rounds designed to aggressively filter people out. At the very end of that exhausting process, you make an offer. But did you actually hire the best person for the role, or just the person who survived the gauntlet? This scatter plot compares resume perfection to actual job performance. Notice this distinct cluster of candidates who look flawless on paper, but turn out to be mediocre employees. A defensible resume often just means someone is highly practiced at interviewing. This disconnect happens because most hiring teams unknowingly operate on rejection logic. It is a process of elimination rather than evaluation. They start by asking, what's wrong with this person? Selection logic starts from the opposite end. It asks, what does great look like for this role? And then looks for specific evidence to match that standard. When a pipeline is tuned exclusively to find flaws, it creates a filter that values the absence of mistakes over the presence of ability. Let's look at a split-screen logic tree to see how this plays out in practice with a single, unconventional high performer. Their resume shows they successfully scaled a small team from 2 to 5 people, but the open role requires managing 12. Team A is using rejection logic. They immediately hunt for the gap in the candidate's experience. They focus entirely on the fact that the role needs 12 people, and the candidate falls short. It's an easy disqualifier. Without the large team experience, they pass on the candidate. Team B evaluates the exact same profile using selection logic. Instead of looking for gaps, they look for behavioral signals of success. They notice the candidate built onboarding systems from scratch and grew a team with 0 attrition. They hire the candidate because that underlying capability, scaling operations while retaining staff, is the exact pattern of growth the company needs. These outcomes are the structural results of the starting question. The bar remains high in both scenarios, but the process is measuring entirely different things. Most teams unconsciously default to the first approach, Team A's rejection logic, because of corporate defensibility and a deeply ingrained aversion to risk. Hiring risk is highly asymmetrical. If you reject someone because they lack a specific bullet point, nobody questions your decision. But if you hire an unconventional candidate and they fail, every earlier yes you gave them invites intense scrutiny. To protect themselves from that scrutiny, hiring teams build defense mechanisms. They add more rounds. They screen harder. The entire hiring environment becomes slow, skeptical, and adversarial by design. Truly strong candidates inherently have options. They read that skeptical energy, and when another company moves faster and asks better questions, they abandon your pipeline and go there instead. A highly defensive hiring process often drives away the best talent, leaving you with a finalist pool of people who simply needed the job badly enough to tolerate the friction. Diagnose which logic your team is using with a simple tool called the debrief check. After your next interview, categorize your team's comments into observed signals versus missing gaps. Take a look at this bar chart representing a typical post-interview debrief. If 70% of your conversation is focused on missing experience or concerns, the team is running on rejection logic. Shifting away from this requires a structural overhaul to evidence-based hiring. The first structural fix happens before the job is ever posted. You define a success profile, outlining exactly what exceptional performance looks like at 30, 60, and 90 days. Platforms like CloudHire use this as the benchmark for the entire process. The second fix is replacing unstructured, vibes-based interviews with strict scorecards. These scorecards are anchored exclusively to observable behaviors and map directly back to your predefined success profile. This shift forces your final debrief conversation to be based on comparative, factual evidence. You are no longer relying on intuition or a simple process of elimination. Successful hiring relies on treating every interview as an evidence-gathering mission, looking for specific signals confirming a candidate can execute the role's core functions.